He just got hit by a snowplow. Has his vision improved? Discuss.
Hey YouTube, welcome back to our channel. My name is Elena.
And I'm Bjorn.
And we are Viking Age reenactors and living historians here to talk with you about your favorite Viking shows.
We are making our way steadily through Ragnarok on episode 3.
This episode is called Jutulheim.
Yeah.
That's
home of the
funny.
Jutels.
That's funny.
Yeah, right? It's a play on words.
Now we're seeing a little bit more of the brotherly dynamic that the two of them have. You know, obviously we've been talking about how he has, Thor's abilities and his brother is very much like Loki. It is kind of reminding me a little bit of that, like, dynamic that the two would have where Loki would go and, try to talk somebody into, saying something, and then if he were to fail, here comes Thor, bashing somebody's head in to try and get answers.
Using Thor as the muscle, yeah. You're just painting over wallpaper?
That's what I was wondering.
Come on.
Hva er det som er greia mellom deg og Vidar egentlig? Har du crush på han,
Saved by the bell. So, just for the record, she didn't say it's open. She said come in. The subtitle said it's open.
Oh.
But she said come in. Such a cool house.
It really is.
They live in a church, which is
Weird. Yeah, I mean, the fact that it is based on a stave church is interesting because, stave churches were not pagan. But it does kind of remind me of, some architecture that you would see in historic cities where you would have churches that are basically redesigned. So one part of the building will be, that old stone church, but then the other part of the building is the more modern build. So it kind of makes me feel like they might have lived there for centuries, maybe even longer than that. Maybe even, dating back to the Viking Age, where, they maybe took over this large stave church for whatever reason to sort of stake their claim as, pagan gods, I suppose. But then they're building onto it. They're, building more modern as the times are changing. So the structure is evolving with them.
Yeah, true. Still got that hammer.
Now it's a paperweight.
Yeah, right?
Jeg så faren min slå deg.
Faren min litt gammeldags krig. Men kanskje vi kan prøve å starte forfra?
I like how he just brushes off the fact that she saw him being beat up by his dad.
No, just totally glaze over that detail.
Yeah, right?
Like, yeah, my dad's old-fashioned. Anyways, as I was saying, I want to get in your pants. Maybe you didn't hear that part. It's more important. They're only nice to you until you get in the car.
Hvorfor har vi ikke sett nærmere på at du tilsynelatende beveger deg mye raskere enn alle andre? Ha en god dag, mamma.
Was that a threat?
Maybe a little. No. I know I went a lot of places with that. I don't think it's a threat. I think she's just trying to, like, convince him that, like, hey, sometimes stuff doesn't add up, and that's normal. I am interested to find out more in depth of, like, how involved the town is with the deities. And kind of see, like, the extent, because obviously, like, they don't know that people amongst them are gods. That's kind of an obvious fact at this point. But I'm curious to see, like, what the real relationship is between them, like why they're there, why they need them, why they do things for the humans. Also, a thought that always crosses my mind with these people who are, like, immortal and live forever is, like, how do they pass off as just being perpetually young all the time? Because, like, by the time that this lady gets to be, like, 70, Vidar is still going to look 30, and, like, what, she's just not going to say anything?
Usually, in vampire films, the vampire would move every, like, 20 years or so.
Yeah, right? But these people don't seem to want to move.
But they're sticking around.
Yeah, just family-owned business. Aw, Yeah, look at that.
Not anymore.
So, like Saksa, I'm just going to digest that really quickly. Thank you.
I'll give you that one.
Wow, though. What? Just... I can't think of any, like, stories of the gods just eating birds for the sake of it. Like, I don't get it. Vidar just broke the neck of a reindeer with his hands and then ripped out its heart for sacrifice. He ate that. He just ate the heart. Like, the only thing I can think of right now that comes to mind is just, like... Again, it doesn't make sense because it's backwards, but just the concept of, like, the destruction of nature. Like, the destruction of, like, the natural world, essentially. And that's all I can really see with that. Is the world record 100 meters in 9.5 seconds? Yo, congrats Usain Bolt, I guess. Dang.
9.58 seconds.
That's insane. That's so fast.
Told you it was Usain Bolt. It's funny that you said that.
I'm just surprised by real world athletes at this point. Like, Jesus. It's totally Odin. The eye patch and all. It's totally Odin and Frigga.
Yeah, I actually, like, in the first episode, I didn't think about the eye patch.
Yeah, neither did I.
But now, like, that we've talked about it a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, I was too caught up with thinking it was Skarsgård. And I still think it's Skarsgård. But yeah, it just registered like, oh yeah, he's got an eye patch. Obviously it's Odin. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm still reeling from that.
He's not dead.
No, of course not. It's Thor. He can.
There's no way he's
Yeah,
dead.
he can take a hit like a freight train. Yeah, no, it's no way is he dead, and that's what's gonna cause more problems for him. But I'm sorry, that just was like horror film, like ha ha kind of thing, you know?
Yeah,
like they're getting me with this episode.
They're getting you with this episode. Goodness. On a different topic, they're throwing axes as a pastime.
Yeah.
And it's funny because they're doing it in a way where somebody would normally be throwing darts.
Yeah, right.
They have the, the like little round target, which is just like a piece of a tree trunk.
Yeah, it's just
I'm assuming.
like a cross section from a stump. Yeah, and it's like throwing darts in the house. Just we'll put a giant axe. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I also noticed there were like 2 different kinds of axes too, because there was one that was like double-headed that the guy had, which is like whatever.
Yeah.
I can't get mad at it because it's not like a period piece, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
'Cause
They would have them in the modern age.
Exactly. In the Viking age, they did not have 2-headed, double-sided axes. That wasn't a thing. But this is 2020, so yes, they do. I dig it. I like that they're bringing this into it now, too. So the bleeding thing, because I want to start with that because it's easier to go into. So the bleeding thing kind of, I feel like it references more like a sacrificial kind of thing. Because, animals would be sacrificially killed and butchered, and then their blood would be collected and like sprinkled essentially for part of the ceremony. So to kind of bleed the animal or to bleed a person even would be a kind of legitimate thing that we know of as as far as historical texts and recollections go. And we also know that humans were at times sacrificed depending on the ritual. I mean, more often it was going to be animals and livestock and things. But every once in a while, human sacrifice was absolutely a thing that they took part in. We don't necessarily know the extent for what would justify a human sacrifice. Most probably it would have to be some kind of very dire situation. But we do know that Odin was known to kind of collect people as or accept people as offerings, essentially. So, in the most dire of times,
right.
That was certainly a thing. But more importantly is the idea of going berserk. The modern word berserk comes from the Old Norse berserker, which is bear shirt. So going berserk obviously kind of has ties to that typical, like, stereotypical type of Viking that we always think of as the berserker. You know, the dude who's got a giant axe and a massive beard and fur on his shoulders and Uggs in his feet, and just is on like this bloody rampage, just screaming death into the wind, and just slaughters everybody that he lays eyes on. And the interesting thing is that that's not necessarily the case, because the topic has been discussed at length, ad nauseum, you might even say. That trope, that stereotype of Viking berserker is starting to get debunked. Mm-hmm. And what's been proposed is that a berserker wasn't somebody who was uncontrollable and just lost to like a murder rage. What's kind of being posed now is that a berserker was actually like a champion of a jarl. And it wasn't necessarily that they were lost to any frenzy. That was, again, more of like a poetic dramatization of who they were. But they were actually these very wealthy, respected, feared champions of warfare, of military combat. And it was because of that they earned the title berserker, or they earned that renown as being just this walking champion of violence and death, essentially. And then because of that, there came with it this association of just, slaughtering in the dozens just ad nauseum because they could. This is, again, another example of stuff that we think we know about, but in actuality, we don't know anything.
Ingenting. Ingenting.
Baldus. The nurse's name is Baldus.
Ja, han ble funnet ved bakhuset nede i havna. Det ser ut som...
Is it the druggy? Chill out, Vidar. You're supposed to be better than this.
Never ends. Really quickly, very tiny little detail that's really fun in here is the nurse's name is Baldus. First of all, it's my namesake.
It's cute.
Yeah, but also the root of the name Val comes from Valkyries. And the Valkyries were the ones that came down to the battlefield to, pick up the souls of the slain soldiers.
Yeah, well, it also comes from the same root as Valhalla as well. That's the whole tie for all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's a nurse working in a hospital.
Oh, that's cute. That's cute.
With possible dead people.
Do you think they thought about the name that much?
I think so.
Do you?
I really do. You don't just throw a name out there without realizing where the root of it comes from.
That's pretty cool. There's also the aspect of the second part of it, the dis, which comes from the diser, which is the female spirits in the family, the female ancestors who would kind of protect and watch over you and stuff. So look at that. That's cute.
That is the perfect name to give her. I love it.
Da har jeg blitt kjørt av en snøplog. Det som om alle mine sanser har blitt skjerpet. Jeg ser bedre. Luktesansen min bedre.
He just got hit by a snowplow. Has his vision improved? Discuss. The phone call before he gets hit is like, hey, the hospital called and they still have Isolde's clothes. Do you want them for anything? Yeah, I'll be there in a minute. Boom.
Maybe he did see the snowplow.
They're wheeling him in. Hey, I'm here to pick up Isilda's clothes. No, you got hit by a snowplow. No, that's fine. I'm here for Isilda's clothes. Dude, what?
Lille frøken.
This is me at a party. Just wicked awkward, not knowing what to do. Also me.
Thor was known for his appetite.
Hovedretten. Rødt kjøtt.
Famously, we know about this through the Lay of Thrym. So Thrym stole Thor's hammer, and he told the gods that the only way they could get it back was if he got to marry Freya, who was the most sought-after goddess of them all, because she is the goddess of fertility and love and all kinds of stuff. And naturally she said no. And Loki devised a plan that everybody but Thor loved. That was basically Thor had to dress up as Freya and pretend to be Freya in order to enter into a marriage with Thrym and gain his hammer back. So Thor went disguised as Freya to Thrym's home and had the whole ceremony, but while they were there, Loki had to cover for him because during the wedding he would just eat and eat and eat and drink and drink and drink caskets of mead. Whole animals, just like anything you put in front of him, he devoured instantly. And everybody was real suspicious, and Thrym was like, what is going on? And Loki had to lie and cover for him and just say, oh, well, we traveled for 9 days and 9 nights, and, Freya was just so maddeningly in love with you that she didn't eat or drink for those 9 days and nights, so she's famished, she's starving. And he was like, oh yeah, that checks out. Idiot. So yeah, I mean, Thor's appetite is just absolutely famous. Even in the sagas, it's something that went down in history, essentially. So it's kind of funny that part of their test to figure out who he is like, let's feed him, see how much he can eat. Like, okay.
Let's put food in front of him, see what happens.
Hva er det her? Det der, mannen. Det er en drikk fra de gamle tider. Vikingene drakk det der. Gjetter, guder, helter drakk det.
Mead is very much like a drink associated with Scandinavian, with kind of the Germanic tribes and stuff. I mean, it's widespread throughout their society, and it even takes part in a large amount of their storytelling and their sagas and their mythology. Like there's literally a myth about mead that grants you magical powers to speak beautifully.
Yeah.
Which I disagree.
You don't think that works?
I've had so much trouble with making words tonight. Listen. And even before the comments, I know it's because I'm not drinking mead. That's the problem. It's the story of the first mead, essentially. So there's 2 different types of gods. There's the Aesir and the Vanir. They had a war, and they couldn't beat each other, so they came to a truce. They all spat into a bowl to swear the truce, and then from the bowl, the gods used that to create life, and that was Kvasir. And he was the most talented skald to ever grace Midgard or any of the 9 realms. And he would go around and share his wisdom and his knowledge and his just poetic prowess, essentially. And a couple dwarves were jealous or something, so they murdered him, and then they used Kvasir's blood to brew their own mead. And that mead was imbued with magical properties because he was a magical being, and they hoarded it greedily and hid it away forever. And then Odin disguised himself as he does. He is a god of wisdom, so of course he's going to naturally seek out this magical mead of poetry. But in the saga, Odin tricks a giant to helping him, who bores a hole through the mountain for Odin to turn into a snake and slither into it. And then he romances the giantess who was guarding it, and by doing so is able to steal the mead for himself. And he tries to bring it back to the gods as much as he can, and he's chased after doing it. And then there's a couple different tales of whether he spits some of it out or he farts it out. Some of the mead. It's in
whichever end it comes out of.
It's in the tale. But the whole idea is that he brings back the magical mead of poetry, and all the talented skalds in Scandinavia are supposed to have, theoretically drank from Kvasir's mead. And all the bad poets drank Kvasir's mead, but they drank the bit that came out of Odin. That's the tale. All right, I don't make up the stories, I just recite them. I'm sorry. I don't know why this wasn't a ponytail. I'm sorry. That was just too much for me.
That threw me off. That's when you're growing out the Norman crop.
Awesome. No, that was actually a really awesome ending scene though.
Yeah.
Before the mirror thing, because again, it's reminiscent of the tales that we had in the mythology. Thor and Loki and their newfound slave boy are traveling across the land. I'll get into the slave boy at a later time.
That's another story.
Totally different story. And they travel to the land of Utgard-Loki, which is Loki from the outside, essentially, from other parts. But they go to Utgard-Loki, and they're pretty much like they're tested and they're tried by these feats of strength and just general feats of whatever they can do. Like, surprisingly, not Thor, but Loki is actually part of a eating competition. Their slave boy takes part in a race because he's supposed to be wicked fast. And then Thor, famously, is in a wrestling match, as well as a drinking competition.
Yeah, he's part of two.
But for this instance, we'll talk about the wrestling match. So he has to wrestle this old lady. And obviously going into it, Thor, the god of strength, versus some old frail who's going to win? You wouldn't think it'd be the old lady. But in this it was. He was able to wrestle her down and get her to a knee, but she ended up overcoming him every single time. And it was because, as it turns out, they were being tricked, and the old lady he was wrestling was old age. And no one, not even the gods, can beat back old age. So this is very much obviously a play on that story where it's, the feat of strength trying to kind of go against something. And whether she was supposed to be old age or just this old ancient deity or something like that.
I think that's her true form.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But I don't know, Ran is a goddess of the ocean. She's a giantess of the ocean. And I don't know if there was anything really in particular about that screamed like ocean giant or anything. It just kind of looked like this old lady.
Definitely old lady.
Yeah, definitely this old lady. So I'm kind of confused whether or not they're trying to say that she is old age, or if they're just trying to pass her off as like a giantess magic kind of thing. Obviously, it kind of plays into both, but I think it's kind of really brilliant of them to kind of throw this out there.
Yeah,
and
sure.
make it a feature of the show. I think it's really well done. This is actually, now that I've have it paused, this is actually terrifying.
Yeah.
Like, it was really cool to just, like, have the flash and be like, oh, whoa, kind of thing. But, like, pausing at it and having her stare at me this whole time while I'm talking about her, I don't like it. I don't appreciate it.
She's just...
Yeah, I really don't appreciate this. So I just, as a cool down, I need to go forward and I need to see his little mirror self. Why?
So he has a mullet.
Yeah, he's got a fierce mullet. Which, hey, you know what? Respect the game, whatever. But, I hate this so much. This is unnecessary. That just, kills all of it for me. Despite how silly it is with the front ponytail, I really do like how they're, portraying everything. How they're kind of, setting it up and, hinting at it and just kind of, choosing when to, make the little appearances and stuff. I really do like that a lot. It's really creative and it's really unique. We are great.
We are
I'm slowly going insane.
That's fine too.
Oh, okay. Well, if that's the case, Flirmercy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We could have her do a spin-off show of Ragnarok undercover, just trying to investigate all these weird happenstances.
That would actually be really cool.
It'd be great.
I'm on board
You're
for that.
welcome to use it, Netflix. Drunk thoughts.
Thank you guys so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit the like button. If you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you can be notified of our future videos. And we will see you in the next one.